Hi, everyone, and welcome to another interview for Extraordinary Latinas. I'm Eliana Rojas, and today I'm so excited and honored to welcome Nilza Serrano. Nilza, you're a powerhouse Latina, a successful entrepreneur who has bridged the gap between private enterprise and public service. You founded several successful companies throughout your career. You're a passionate community activist and Latino advocate. You've served in a number of boards, and the list just goes on, making you an inspiring and extraordinary Latina. It's such an honor to have you here. How are you this afternoon?
Thank you for having me, Liana. I think that this is going to be so exciting, an exciting conversation where we can talk about how we can help other Latinos and Latinas kind of bridge that gap and figure out how to get from the small business idea that they have to actual implementation and how not to give up. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
That is awesome. And I want to start by asking you to share your story and how have you been able to get to, everything that you've accomplished?
Thank you. Sure, I'd be happy to share. I'm an immigrant from Guatemala. I got here to this country when I was 7 years old. And I found that my mother struggled every week to figure out how she was going to feed us. And that was something that I didn't want for me, my family, and my children. So I figured that it was going to be either the same status quo, and as you know, it happens over and over and over in our community. If you live in the projects, you will stay in the projects for 20, 30, 40 years. And you need to fix whatever is hindering you from taking the next step. So for me, it was, okay, I'm not going to take any chances. I'm not going to put myself in this pigeonhole. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to get to wherever I'm going earlier, and I'm going to leave the latest. I'm going to help and volunteer wherever I can so I could learn the trade, and I am going to volunteer for people that I admire so that I can learn from them. I know that everyone says mentorships are great, but people that are busy have very little time. So what I did is I would say, can I volunteer to help you file? Can I shadow you? Can I bring you coffee? Can I sit in the office for a day or two while I watch you work so that I could learn and ask you questions? And that's really the foundation of how I started. And I didn't it wasn't just education, it wasn't just business, it wasn't just nonprofits, it was also politics. I was not going to let the decisions that are going to affect me, my family, and my community be made without me having a voice. So that's how I was able to bridge all those enterprises together.
That is just admirable because you're right. I don't think many of us have that drive of just thinking that we might ask somebody to, let me shadow you or let me learn from you by looking by your side. I feel like a lot of us, and I include myself, because I remember those days, the fear of asking. Because of what if they say no? What if they think that I'm going to take advantage? Like all these what ifs come to mind, and that stops us from moving forward. How do you manage those what ifs?
Well, the only thing people could tell you is no. And after they tell you a couple of times no, then you become immune to it. It's not as hurtful at the first time or the second time or the third time. After that, it's like, okay, they can't. But when they tell you no, you say, well, how about next week? Or how about next month? Or when do you think you'll have time to let me shadow you? When do you think you'll have time for me to help you file? When do you think you'll let me have time for me to come and organize your computer and organize your files? Those are, people appreciate that because they're so busy that those little things are the ones that they can't do. Give me all your receipts so I can put them in order so that you could file your expense report. Those little suggestions and offers go such a long way.
You're so right. You also talk about, mentorship, and I know that I've started to see a lot of trend of, look for a mentor. But you talk about something very important in terms of it's not only about mentors, it's just about, reaching out to others that have gone down a path that you're interested in. Who has inspired you, or how do you look for those either mentors or just people that you want to ask for some type of help?
I just had this exact conversation earlier today. I belong to a Harvard cohort for trustees across the nation. And because I've been a trustee now for our pension plan for almost 8 years now, I've learned how to navigate the very complicated um, field of finance and investment and asset management. And it's very complicated because there's nuances that just kind of have been there forever and people just want to keep them there forever. But you, as a trustee, you are the one that develops the policy, creates what is going to be the next steps. So today at our cohort, um, I volunteered and I said, look, I have been in this world now for 8 years, and I think I've been able to navigate it to benefit diversity and inclusion. Why don't any of the recently appointed or the recently elected, here's my phone number, please call me and I can help you, guide you through those difficult conversations that you're going to have with your staff. Because a lot of the staff want status quo, and they want status quo because they don't, they're already overworked. They work really hard. They're afraid to make different decisions because what they think is working is the only way to do that, and it's hard for them to see other ways that things can work. So you have to help other trustees figure out how to navigate the conversation so that they can get their vision approved, and other people in the board helping them get there as well.
Yes, such powerful advice. I know that you've had a non-linear or non-traditional career in your life, and I've heard from a lot of young people, concerns of if I start a path, it feels like I need to follow that path, so they're afraid to move forward because what if that path is not the one that I'm meant to do? And then they stop doing things just because they're so afraid of picking a path because they feel that they can't move out of that path. But you've proven that there's not one path, that you can start one way and then sort of go and grow professionally and having such important impact despite the paths. Can you share a little bit more about your thought and your experience?
Absolutely. And I think that every experience we bring is a thread to the fabric of who we become. I started in the medical field and I wanted to be a hospital administrator. That was my goal when I was going to college. I wanted to be a healthcare administrator. Then I started working in the medical field and I realized, I don't like this so much. So I continued to work there because that's how I was making my living, but at the same time trying to figure out what is it that I want to do that is going to fulfill me. And then I decided I want to get into marketing and figuring out how I can talk to people of color. This was many, many years ago. And then I said, okay, I'm going to market our hospitals. At the time when I started working in the hospital environment, they didn't have language sensitive materials. Everything was in English, or they would translate it in a way that it didn't make sense. So then I decided, this isn't for me. So then I got into the marketing and started to deal with commercials that were ethnic appropriate, collaterals that were ethnic appropriate. And that's how my love for marketing became part of me. Then I said, wow, I really like the messaging and I really like to make a difference. I remember specifically when I was a little girl, watching a commercial of this beautiful blonde woman driving a Corvette. And she was driving it through the roads, and it was just a, wow, a sports car. Oh my God, and in my head, I could remember saying to myself, You could never have that. You could never be that. And then she stopped at the beach and got off and got her blanket and went to go lay out. And I was like, wow, right? And then I remembered, what do you mean I can't be that? Of course I can be that. But the subliminal messaging in that commercial made me feel I can't be that. So I decided to start doing production and building commercials, trailers, radio spots that spoke to us, that made me as a Latina, or made Latinos or younger Latinas feel like that's where we could be and we could have. There's no reason why we can't have Corvettes or a Chanel purse or whatever it is that makes you happy, a home, whatever it is. You can attain it if you want it. But messaging has always done a horrible job in telling us we can do that. So I got into marketing and advertising, and I did that for a while. And I did a lot of trailers for movies, meaning that, you know, the trailers that you see when you sit in a movie, and then, oh my God, my job was to encourage you as a viewer to get butts in seats that you want to see that movie. Sometimes you take the best of the movie on the trailer, and so that people would want to buy the tickets and get there. My job was to get butts in seats. So I did that, and then I started doing advertising, and it was great, and I loved it. But then there comes a time in your life where you say, okay, production work is very, very, very hard. It's a hard work, and you constantly have to be thinking about what 14-year-olds to 24-year-olds are doing, because everything you create is for that audience. Even if you're selling something to a 50-year-old, you are really targeting the mentality of his inner 24-year-old. So, and I have to tell you that there comes a time we go where I don't really want to care about what a 24-year-old, ya estoy viejita, ya no quiero, right? I don't want to have to deal with that anymore. So I left that, and then I worked a little bit in the car industry, helping Ford Motor Company embrace the Latino community and take what I've learned in the medical field and the collateral that wasn't targeted to Latinos, what I learned in the entertainment field in marketing, and then took it to Ford. And then Ford Motor Company embraced, or Southern California Ford Dealers Association embraced what I was doing. And I was able to bring up the market share in Southern California by $660 million to Latino surnames in about 3 years, because they allowed me to use what I had learned to get to the next step. So I was blessed that they embraced me to do that. Then after that, I still do some production. I still have some clients that refuse to go anywhere else, so I still do that. I still do a little bit of stuff in the medical field because I have clients that don't want to go anywhere else because they like my style. And then now I do a lot of government affairs. I make sure that the Latino voice is always in everybody's front lobe, and that we're always in I always try to ensure that every elected official, when they talk about diversity, that they're not forgetting that Latinos belong to that diversity bucket. Somehow in the last maybe year and a half, they've forgotten that we belong in that bucket. So we just have to nudge them and remind them that we belong. We're almost 20% of the United States population, and we need to be counted. And we need to be provided for with the resources that we are giving them, because Latinos, as you know, we over-index in entertainment and pretty much everything, makeup, soda. We over-index on every single one of the purchasing segments.
That's an incredible story, and definitely like the shift in industries and in what you're doing in your role shows that you don't have to go down one path. But I do see like an umbrella thread through all of them, and that feels like your passion, like your purpose of supporting Latinos clearly is on all of those, and I think that's so important that we recognize what's our purpose, what's our driver, our motivator, which will keep that common thread no matter what we do in our career is so important.
Right.
And in your story, you share a lot of what you do in terms of elevating the voice for others, right? Either the voice for Latinos, the voice for women, just people that might not have the elements or the resources to be able to talk for themselves. And you're doing such a great job through the different, hats that you wear to elevate those voices. But how do you keep your own voice from not getting lost in
You
all of
know,
that conversation?
actually, I think that uh, I don't lose my voice because I don't forget. I don't forget where I came from. I remember growing up in housing projects and going to bed hungry. I remember my mom crying in the room because she didn't have enough money to pay the bills. That is my foundation, and I can't and I will not forget it. So that keeps me grounded. Plus, I have a bunch of people that say, ¿Qué te crees? You can't. So, I mean, and then I'm blessed that I don't have a lot of friends, but I have a few solid friends that keep you grounded. And that's important, right? Those few friends that are going to tell you, no, 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 Nilza, no, you're just a mere mortal, stop it. So then it keeps you grounded. But I think that ultimately we all have the opportunity to achieve anything we want and not to be afraid, because people want to help people if they ask. And very influential people, I'm not talking about me, but influential people want to be seen as people who can help, and they find it flattering if you go and say, I really would like some advice from you. And they will help. And then once they say yes, then you become part of their everyday thinking. Oh, how can I help Nilza? Or how can I help Ileana? How can I, those kind of things that we need to do.
You talk something very important that I only learned recently, or at least I became conscious recently, and it's about building those strategic relationships. Because first you talk about friends, like those people that you can pour your heart out, but then there are those strategic relationships, which can be personal, can be professional, but there are those that you trust that will help you in accomplishing whatever you want, but you're also helping them in accomplishing what they like. There's an honesty and a trust in those. How have you built those strategic relationships? Because I imagine those have been important for you to accomplish all the things you have.
I it's hard to put a pin on how that happened. Um, but I do have friends across the industry, acquaintances of all industries, right, that I can call. Um, and it's always a two-sided relationship. You help them with whatever you can, and they help you with what they can. It's never one-sided. Um, but you also have to be wary of the one-sided relationships. And I do caution people to make sure that it's reciprocal, that you're getting something and they're getting something, because if not, people tend to take, and then you realize, wait a minute, what happened to what they said they were going to do for me and it didn't happen. So it is extremely important that when we are helping and when people are helping us, that it's both sides have a mutual respect for each other.
That is so important. And I just was talking earlier today about, like you say, many of us want to give. Like that's what drives us, and we give without realizing that we're not sometimes not getting things in return.
Right,
So
exactly.
so important to keep that in mind. How do you take care of yourself now that self-care has always been important, but I think now more than ever we're seeing that there has to be that balance.
Yeah, there has definitely has to be a balance. For me, I think organization is my where I leave all the problems in my life, and I organize my closets, like my home. I nest a lot. I clean. I organize. I mean, I don't think any other human being has a folded rag drawer, but I do. Everything is folded into little squares and colored by sizes, and that's how I escape from whatever is troubling me or whatever seems to be pressuring me. Um, so I do get massages from time to time, but I also love friends. I love people to come over and we have breakfast and we sit down around the table and just talk, 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 talk. And sometimes it's talk about anything but work. And that's how I decompress. Plus, I got my laziest employee right there.
Yeah, I was looking at that. So awesome.
I need new staff.
What advice would you give yourself, or do you currently give people that are around you, especially young people that are seeing the future and sometimes get scared of what's to come? What advice would you give them?
Don't be afraid of the no, because it's only no. And tomorrow you'll be stronger for it. It doesn't matter if they tell you no, and then you just find somebody else until they tell you yes.
Such an easy, what seems to be an easy piece of advice.
I know it's
so afraid, right?
it's scary. It's scary to hear the words no, but eventually it just becomes okay. And maybe that relationship didn't work. I'll show them, and then you go knock somebody else's door, and then somebody else's door, and then somebody will say yes. Eventually, they will say yes.
That's awesome. Did you envision where you wanted to be, like many, many years when you were young? Like, did you envision where you wanted to be?
No, it didn't. My path, the journey did not start out this way, for sure. This is not where I envisioned myself. I envisioned myself when I was really young. Believe it or not, I wanted to be a airline pilot. ¿De dónde me salió? Yo no sé. Pero yo quería, that's what I wanted to do. And then after that, I wanted to be a labor law attorney. And those are the two things that I really wanted to do, and somehow that didn't happen. And I'm good with it because I do work a lot with labor, and I'm fighting for human capital, which is one of the important things we all have to remember. Human capital is vital to the success of any community.
Yes, totally. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Just don't, if somebody tells you no, knock on the next door until they tell you yes.
Awesome. When somebody tells me no, I'll text you, Nilza, they keep telling me no.
Text me, call me, I'm here. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank
your time,
you.
for your words of wisdom, for your energy, your story, everything. It was such a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more and hearing about your extraordinary story as a woman, as a Latina. Thank you so much for being here today. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Muchísimas gracias.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.